All right. Hello, everyone. Really happy to end this event with you. So my name is Chrysanthe Gomré. I'm working as a UI designer at Odoo with the R&D department. So my colleague Stefano, which is in the room already, gave a talk yesterday about what our mission, what we do on a daily basis. But so basically, we are in charge of the backend user interface and some mock-upping and other stuff. Before we start, I highly recommend you scan this QR code. There is also a link for the direct website underneath, because we will walk through different notions and methods. So if you have any questions, I suggest you type in directly the question and I will answer them at the end of the talk. Yeah, so I will do a second to check. So quick introduction, but over the past few months I've been working with my colleague Mathieu, which is also in the room, on the dark mode. So the idea of this talk is to walk you through different challenges we faces and things we have to take into account while working on it. So we will start with a quick introduction about the dark mode. We will then deep dive into Odoo dark mode. We'll then have some tips and a quick demo of how we handle all these variable stuff. And we will have some time for your question at the end. All right, so interest for dark mode in Google search over years. So you might see this graphic. And if we look at it, we can see that it started to become quite popular in the last years. And so there are many explanations to this, but I believe that the adoption of dark mode with software like Spotify, for example, which even use it as default theme, or Discord or Google, contributed a lot to make this popular across every software developer. So last year, if you join us at the Odoo experience, we released a dark mode with Odoo 16, and basically it looked like this. So I guess many of you used it, and it's quite good. But actually, we received lots of feedback from the community that thinks like me. This one is my favorite, actually. So it's Mario that tells us, better run Odoo 16 in dark mode, light attracts bugs. So as developer, I can relate to this. Well, Mario, I got a good news for you, because today I'm glad to announce that Odoo 17 is getting an updated dark mode. So Fabien briefly explained that we introduced a new dark mode, but fortunately he left me some things to present, so thank you, Fabien. Main change is the new dark mode primary. So if we take a look at this, which is the new interface we introduced in Odoo 17, you can see that we use still the purple as primary color, and if we put the dark mode next to it, we can see that there is also a purple color as a primary. So the main reason for this is that we wanted to improve consistency. So the idea is to really make the transition between the two modes really smooth. So when a user would switch between the two, he would not be lost and see lots of color, really saturated, really bright, popping to his eyes. So yeah, this is the main improvement. And I think it's time to see how to bring it to your own module. But before explaining this, we have to do some theory, but trust me, it's gonna be fun. The grayscale. So I guess you guys know what a grayscale is. So it's basically lots of colors. So in Odoo, we work with thints of gray 100 to 900. So 100 being the lightest color and 900 being the darkest one. And when you pick one of those colors, which is associated to a variable, so for example here, gray 200, we can see that Odoo will generate, well actually Bootstrap will generate 3 classes for you to use. So we got text 200, which will set the text color to gray 200. We got BG 200, that will do the same for the background color. And we got text BG 200, and this one is pretty interesting actually, because it will actually set the background color to gray 200, which is the color on the left. but it will then choose between light or dark text to ensure it's readable. So we will see later that there is no really uh, something going on in Odoo to prevent you to add a 200 text on a 200 background, so you can basically make your title invisible. But for this example, TextBG 200 ensure that your text will be visible. So what happened when we switched to the dark mode? Well, actually, my colleague Stefano gave a really nice talk yesterday. I recommend you to scan the QR code to watch it on YouTube. But when you switch to the dark mode, we use a default statement to override the values. So I can show you in the editor directly. So this is the primary variable file. So you can see that we have the grayscale I introduced earlier, so 100 to 900. And we can see that if we switch to primary variable.dark, which is the file loaded in the dark mode, we got other variable here. So basically what's happening here is that the default statement allows us to overwrite the default value with a new one. And so if we take back the grayscale side by side, so the left one is the light mode one and the right one is the dark mode one, we can see that the value 100, which is the lightest in the light mode, is becoming the darkest in the dark mode. And I think this is one of the main key things to understand this presentation, is that when you use a light color in light mode, this will become really dark in dark mode. So you really want to check the both mode when you work on the implementation, because you can have surprises, and I used to have surprises, so I recommend you to actually check. But so basically all the values are inverted, but I actually lied to you, they're not really all inverted. There is one exception. It's a variable that we call Oview background color. It's a variable that we created within Odoo. And this variable is actually the exception because it's used in Odoo to get the background of a view. So if we head up to this tab, we can see that if I enter into CRM, we got different color, and we got the background of the view, which I will come back on it later. And this is actually used to define the background, for example, here of the form. So this is defined with the view background color variable. And if we go in the light mode, it's interesting because you can see that the background is white. And I told you before, when you switch to the dark mode, everything is inverted. So if you use white color, you would expect the background to be black, but we do not want a pure black background, obviously. So the trick here is that we override the value to a dark gray. So if we go back to the primary variable file and we search for a view background color, and of course I forgot something here, and of course I cannot find it, and it's because it's defined in the community edition. So if I can find it. So here you can see that we defined the view background color on white. So this will be used by default until we override it. So in that case, it's in the dark mode. I had it here. So we define it to O gray 200. So basically every view inside Odoo will use that color as default. Let's go back here. So this brings me to the next step, which is always double check. So I told you before that you should actually check the dark mode when you work on it, because you cannot really understand what's going on in the other mode while working on a single one. So I created this quick example. So this is the light mode of Odoo. You might be familiar with it, and actually everything looks perfect. Design is fine-tuned, everything is standing out. But then if I switch to the dark mode, we can see that everything looks a bit more different, and actually there are some things that looks broken, and this is because the variable are not used correctly. So what's happening here is that we have three variables defining a white background. So we have BG white, which will become BG black in dark mode. So this is the background of the card. We got BG view, which is white in black in light mode and will become 200 in dark mode. And we have finally BG light and BG white, which are working the same way. So this is what we should aim for. So here we are using the BGView class, which ensure that we use the right variable and we bring elevation. So I told you before that we don't really give you things to ensure that your text is visible. So on the right, you can see that we applied text 200 on the card. And so basically the title of the card is invisible. So actually this should not happen, but still interesting to mention it. On the left side, we got the white text color, and this could be basically because you didn't set any color override, but this could be also obtainable by using TextBG 200, but actually you should not use it here. Second thing you need to understand is elevation. So I mentioned it before, but basically elevation is the distance between two surfaces along the z-axis, so pretty abstract. But if we take like a concrete example, you only have the headset and the little box thing in your pocket, and these are close to you because you use them a lot. Well, in Odoo it's pretty similar. So we will display things like modal, popover, drop-down menus, so all the things that need to attract the user attention with a lighter color. So if we take a look at this example, we got on the right what we shouldn't do actually. So we got a background which is set to O gray 200. And on top of it, we had a drop-down menu which is darker. So actually it's using BG 100. And we can see that it looks a bit weird actually. And on the left, we set the background color to 300. So this provides elevation, and this will ensure the user gets that this element is placed on top, and he should concentrate on this element first. Choosing the right approach, so the theory is ended, thanks. There are actually different approaches to implement the dark mode in Odoo. The best one is actually to use bootstrap classes. So I told you before that we provide classes like BG200 for the 200 color, text200 and textBG200. And these are really the best thing to use because it improves the consistency. So basically you define the variable in the light mode and you don't even need to override it in the dark mode. So the system will switch the value itself, so you don't have to work twice. They're really easy to implement, so you just have to open the XML. I don't know if I have a file here, but if we open the XML and search for the color, I'm not on the right things, but anyway, you can basically set the class directly in the XML and everything will work on its own. And then you have CSS variables. So CSS variable is another approach. So you might encounter some cases when you work on the dark mode where the color you want to use is actually not the right one. So let's say you have a component that is red in light mode and you want this component to be blue in dark mode. Well, we don't provide a class that does this. So what you should do is using CSS variables. And so basically you will create a .dark file, which should be declared in the manifest, but normally it's mostly done in some files by default. And you will actually define your variables to be overridden in the dark mode. So let's say you have a component with a class of my component. You will, in the dark mode, target my component and set an overriding value for the CSS variables. And what will happen is that the .dark file will be loaded on top of the light one. So as it will be loading first, you will be using the right value. So the .dark files, it's actually the place to use your CSS variables. And you might want to limit the number of these files because it takes some size on the module, but it's not that easy, but still try to keep it standard and to not create customization when it's not needed. And there is also the contrast, which is really important, but we already talked about it. So if we look at this example, well, we can see that the text is readable because it's a white text on a dark background. So you can see the contrast ratio, and you might be familiar with it because it's common stuff we do as developer. But as you can see on the left, it's not always readable. So here we have an example of a dark text that gets lighter and lighter on a white background, and this can really become problematic. All right, so the dark mode. Okay, there was missing a title. So how we apply this to Odoo dark mode? So I will have to switch a lot between the two interfaces, but if we take a look at our primary variable files, we can see that, so I told you we define a grayscale here at the top. And so all this color will be used in the interface. So basically it looks like this. And if we comment the whole stuff, we get this. So pretty weird. We are in dark mode. The switch is activated. Well, we got a white background. Some elements are still weird. So we have like drop downs that are gray. And basically what's happening here is what I explained before. So since we removed all the overrides, we get the default, which are the light mode variables. And next we can maybe bring some color here. So maybe I can uncomment this. So what will this does actually, it will provide some colors. So okay, we start to have some dark thing here, but still not perfect. There is like a white background to this rectangle, which is pretty weird. I don't know why. And we can see that the top bar is also pretty bad looking. We don't have any contrast here. And this is because we are missing something, which is the variable I presented you before, bgview, also known as view background color. And so you can see that everything works out of the box. So we basically just override the grayscale and everything works fine. Odoo understands that he has to do a transition between the light mode variables and the dark mode one. But since we actually commented this line, Odoo cannot understand what he has to do for the background, and he keeps using the light mode one. So I can uncomment this, and we can see that everything is fine. We still have something missing here, but this is actually due to the other stuff below. So if I remove this, so let's remove the changes we apply, we can see that everything is working fine now. So we have the right contrast, we have the right colors, and everything is working as we want it to do. Quick recap. Try to use Bootstrap classes as much as you can. So we don't provide really a list of these, but you can actually find them in the Bootstrap documentation. So I recommend you to always search within the documentation if there is not a class that can achieve what you want to do. Ensure your text is readable, so this is quite obvious, but avoid using a text color that is very similar to the background one. Avoid arbitrary values. So I talk about keeping things standard. You might want to use the grayscale variable we provide you because these are defined within Odoo, so you don't have to implement anything else, and it works out of the box, so you should actually use them. Well, the things below is actually the loading order of the files, but again, the talk from yesterday also talks about it, but it's simply showing you how we import every CSS variables, and this can help you to understand why your variables might be overridden. So for the grayscale, well, it defines all the shade available for styling your module. It gets inverted between light and dark mode. And the change you applied here, so if we change a value here, so if I say this is red, this will actually apply everywhere, hopefully, yeah. So you can see that you only have to change it once, and Odoo will change it everywhere for you. So this is pretty nice. You don't have to implement it in every place you want to. So Bootstrap classes, I explained you that it ensures consistency. It's also easy to maintain because I told you you have to simply change the first variable and everything is then modified automatically. And combo classes often do the job. So I didn't talk about it, but for example, you can define a background color with a Bootstrap classes and then use a text classes on top of it to achieve like a readable text. You don't really have to provide custom code for this, so always nice to know. For the CSS variables, you might want to use them, as I said, if the text background or background properties are not enough. But something I forgot to mention is that you have to be as specific for the selector as you are in light mode. So if you define your variable within the dark mode with a specific class that you target, you have to replicate it in the dark mode. And lastly, for the contrasts, elements that you applied on top should be lighter. So this is the elevation we talk about. Well, this is a recommendation, but you should at least aim for a text contrast and a color contrast that is at least AA. So this can be checked by inspecting the element. And try to avoid colors that are too saturated. Thank you for your attention. This was a bit not technical, but maybe a bit misty. So if you have any question, just ask them in the pad and I will try to answer them as much as I can.
So there are a few questions. Do dark mode impact QWeb reports?
Well, this is a really technical one. I actually don't want to say something wrong to you, so I don't know if it's someone from the audience. No, it doesn't seem to. Actually, I would say that dark mode should apply in most of the stuff within Odoo, but I don't have the specific answer to provide you, so it doesn't apply actually. So.
Second question, what about shadows coloring here? Should it be inverted? Become white?
Actually, my advice would be to remove shadows. So as you can see for Odoo 17, we provided a new interface design, which is really flat and more sleek. So my advice would be to avoid the shadows as much as possible.
All right. Then there's the third question about the version of Bootstrap that you mentioned.
Well, currently we are using Bootstrap 5. And 5.2, and I don't know if there is some plan to change it, but for the moment we're using Bootstrap 5.2. So.
All right. And then another question, a creative question. Someone asked if they can create a module to customize the Odoo dark mode.
Yeah, I would say yes. So I show you that all the variables are defined in the primary variable file. So I would say that as long as you create a module, you can actually define a primary variable file that would overwrite the Odoo's one with default statement as I showed in the talk.
Okay. But maybe nice to specify a bit what they want to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then last question, do dark mode impact spreadsheets?
Actually,
question.
so spreadsheet is one of the exceptions. Currently, spreadsheet doesn't provide dark mode. I won't go into the details, but it's something that could be nice to have. It's a discussion we should open, so I can guarantee that there will have some follow-up on this, but I cannot guarantee that it will be implemented.
Maybe for next year.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Okay.
To keep some stuff for next year.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much
Thank you.
for the presentation. Should be nice.